What are your thoughts about this election?
This time, the election campaigns are more interesting or frankly blunt, and they're candid attacks on each other.
Since the race is very tight, it's very hard to predict. What would be the policymakers in Delhi and Islamabad thinking?
India is getting annoyed with a more demanding approach and expectation from Washington to have a more aggressive approach towards China.
Washington is not extremely happy with Indian stance, Israel and Iran. What's happening there?
The next 3 days or 72 hours are critical. According to open source intelligence assessment of both US and Israeli government, they are expecting a major Iranian attack against Israel.
With a fresh episode of The Weekend, I'm Murtaza Solangi.
And I'm Muhammad Ali.
Well, it looks like we are only 4 days away from US elections. We will talk about that. We will also talk about Israel-Iran tensions and which way it may go before or after US elections. And we might talk about Pakistani politics if we have the time. So why don't we start with US elections? As we all know that around 161 million eligible US voters will participate in these elections, and out of this number, around 65 million US voters have voted already. Now, looking at the last 2020 elections record, there was a turnout of over 66% US voters. So let's see how this election turns out to be. The campaign has been quite hectic and I might say even nasty. Friday night, just 7 miles away from each other, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump would be having a rally in my old state, Wisconsin, near Milwaukee. So let's see how that turns out. And as we are talking, they had rallies in two swing states of Arizona and Nevada, where in Nevada it was Kamala Harris. She brought out singer and star Jennifer Lopez, also known as J-Lo. And in Phoenix, Arizona, Trump brought in a right-wing anchor, talk show host, Tucker Carlson. So let's see how that goes. We will also discuss how it might impact our region, India, Pakistan, South Asia, and the Ukraine war, Europe, US relations. So without wasting more time, Shadi, let me ask you, what are your thoughts about this election? The recent polls that I saw, Kamala Harris had 1% edge over Trump, but that's a very thin, razor-sharp edge.
Murtaza, thank you. I think you've given a very elaborate and comprehensive overview of how the election campaigns are panning out in the last few days before the American nation goes to polls. But there are six other aspects which are very important and interesting for our viewers. First off, as you rightly pointed out, that this time the election campaigns are more interesting or frankly blunt, and they're candid attacks on each other. But Another aspect which is becoming more serious is the allegation of the establishment supporting the Democrats by the Republican. And also, there have been recent reports that Chinese, Russian, and Iranian hackers are expected to influence the upcoming elections, which represents a grave threat to U.S. cybersecurity and political future as well. So that's another aspect which is interesting. The second aspect is, I think, foreign policy, defense policy, immigration, economy continue to attract most interest and attention by both Republican and Democrats camps. Traditionally, you know very well, immigration and economy have dominated the political discourse. But due to the ongoing wars in the Middle East and Ukraine, I think a significant attention has been given to these foreign and defense policy issues by both camps. And it is quite clear that Mr. Trump is trying to rally with the more conservative voters and capitalizing on their economic, ideological, and cultural concerns towards other communities like the Mexicans, and also sort of threatening that the West needs to pull up its socks, and the Western Europe needs to reduce its dependence on the US and rise up and contribute more significantly towards the war effort in Ukraine, which is causing a lot of concern in the Western Europe. But also in terms of Middle East, a very interesting development is that there are reports that in a recent meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu, Mr. Trump advised him to conclude this conquest agenda before he returns to White House. And this coincides with his latest tweet that when I become president, I will bring peace to the Middle East. And what's your take on this?
Well, I broadly agree with your assessment. We'll see how this turns out. And if Kamala returns to White House or not. But, US-Europe tensions are one aspect. I was just going through a survey which said almost 2/3, 69 to 70% Europeans would prefer Kamala Harris because she would ensure US Atlantic alliance to continue. And same goes for Ukrainian war, because Trump has said it more than once that he would like this war to end. Europeans think that ending the war, when Trump talks about it, it means ending it on Russian terms. So that's one aspect. But since the race is very tight, it's very hard to predict. 1% edge is not significant. And even Kamala has said the race is tight, but she tells her campaign that they will win. But let me just ask you, and let me just add, as I have seen the reports, US voters of Indian and Pakistani origin, they too are divided in the half. One report that I just saw said that a slight majority of Americans of Indian descent tilt towards Kamala Harris. Same goes with Pakistani descent Americans. Traditionally, US voters of Pakistani origin have sided with Democrats, but many Pakistani origin Americans are disillusioned with Biden, especially the policy on Gaza. So it would be interesting, but I would like to pick your brains on what would be the policymakers in Delhi and Islamabad thinking. What should they hope for? What's their hope and nightmare?
Very important question. I'll try to do justice with your expectation. I think the concern in Pakistan is that since the Democrats have a more balanced and careful approach towards foreign and defense policy, the expectation is that the Democrats will try to maintain balance between the U.S. Commitment towards Western European alliance of NATO, escalating hostilities with China will be managed carefully, and the war effort against Russia is likely to continue under Democrat watch. But if Trump returns to White House, the concern in Islamabad is that he can escalate hostilities more towards China, whereas warming relations with Moscow, and that will translate into significant concerns in the Western European camp towards U.S. security commitment against Russia. But the two aspects which have drawn most concern in Islamabad are a greater interest by Trump administration of pressurizing and economically coercing China in order to protect American jobs could make things difficult for Pakistan in managing and navigating a balanced and delicate relations with both Washington and Beijing. The second concern is that he has not hidden his active support for Israel, and it is possible that Tel Aviv expects Trump to be more forthcoming in providing military, diplomatic, and economic support for Israel, which could embolden Tel Aviv further. Whereas the concern in Tel Aviv is that in case Kamala becomes the first woman president of the US, she could be more demanding in terms of crisis management and ending of hostilities from Tel Aviv.
Very important observations. As I was looking through different articles and reports for our region, my assessment was that people in Islamabad and Delhi both consider Kamala a predictable president And both consider Trump as unpredictable. Despite the personal shenanigans, as you would, Mr. Modi calling Trump his good buddy and friend. And we have heard PTI supporters eulogizing Imran, Trump personal chemistry and their family relations. Even some recent social media posts by PTI supporters in US having pictures of daughter-in-law of President Trump, Lara Trump, who's the wife of Eric Trump. It's anybody's guess what Trump would do. Few things he has already said on Europe-US relations, NATO, Ukraine war. But when it comes to issues related to our region, there are few constants. No matter who comes to White House, the campaign against China to contain China would be a constant, no matter who it is. The tactics, methods, intensity may differ. So there would be no much essential difference. But Trump is supposed to be more aggressive when it comes to China. And if he raises pressure on China, it would be very difficult for China-Russia bloc, how they will handle it. Because one ally is affected, it would affect the other as well. How would they respond if Trump warms up to Russia and attacks China, who are very close allies today, economically, politically? It will be very difficult. But coming back to our region, while Trump would continue using India as a pivot to contain China, he has publicly said few things which might annoy Indians: immigration and trade. These might be thorny issues between India and US. When it comes to Pakistan, Trump might increase pressure on Pakistan to choose between US and China. So the old mantra of George Bush Jr., either you are with us or against us, might, sound to us again. Even during 2017 and 2020, if you remember, Trump was very caustic. If you remember the New Year tweet he had when Americans were still in Afghanistan. But now the region has changed after US withdrawal. So in strategic terms, they don't need us. And India remains a US strategic partner. So it might have impact on both countries, India and Pakistan, if Trump comes to power. When it comes to Kamala Harris, while she will continue warming up and strengthening their strategic ties with New Delhi, but Kamala has been talking about, religious freedoms in India, human rights, and many other things that Modi would not like to listen to. So it would be interesting for both India and Pakistan who comes to 1600 Pennsylvania.
Indeed, I just want to add another interesting aspect. I was listening to the recently held Chanakya Defense Dialogue, in which a number of leading American, Israeli security experts participated, and the Indian Army chief was also there. And one thing which was very evident was the tension that New Delhi is beginning to face and feel, because it seems that India is getting annoyed with a more demanding approach and expectation from Washington to have a more aggressive approach towards China, whereas India seems to be more careful in its engagement with China. And Modi met the Chinese president as part of the BRICS summit as well. And recently, they have agreed to reduce their military presence and coordinate the patrols on the border, which indicates New Delhi's intention of managing its relations with China more carefully and stopping short of maintaining or escalating hostilities against Beijing, which has caused concerns in Washington, because, as you rightly pointed out, Washington expects India, as the pivot of the Indo-Pacific strategy, to be more aggressive and more hostile towards China than New Delhi is willing to be. And I think this expectation gap between Washington and New Delhi can affect the ties in the months and years to come.
Indeed. Besides this, Washington is not extremely happy with Indian stance on Ukraine war either. They would have wanted more support of Ukraine rather than trying to balance this relationship, because India's historical relations with India, especially in the defense sector. So that's one more avenue of tensions. But the recent tensions between US and India, Canada and India, especially on this Sikh separatist movement, that will continue, because New Delhi is not too happy how Canada and US have handled this, and the Western Bloc and Five Eyes have reacted to these tensions.
Indeed. And I think it is very clear that even the US State Department sort of advised New Delhi to meet Canada's expectations in terms of investigation and cooperation, which reflects that India is less than forthcoming in terms of its investigation and reaching down to the reality.
We have a few minutes left. Why don't we go to this regional theater, Israel and Iran? You have been following this more, rigorously, I would say, than I have. What's happening there?
I think the next 3 days or 72 hours are critical. According to open source intelligence assessment of both US and Israeli government, they have, through satellites, picked up significant movements of Iranian drone and missile forces in the last 24 hours. And they are expecting a major Iranian attack against Israel, primarily from Iraqi soil, in order to disincentivize a further Israeli reaction directly against Iran. And another factor which reinforces this concern is the timing of this possible Irani attack on Israel. because in the last few days of the Biden administration, the Iranians could have calculated this as the most opportune moment to engage in a high profile military action against Israel, and they don't expect Washington to put a lot of pressure and be actively involved by virtue of their preoccupation in the presidential elections and domestic politics. So I think the next 3 days are going to be critical. So let's see how this pans out.
If I put you in the position of making decisions in Tehran and the data that you have analyzed so far, what do you think may happen in next 3 or 4 days? What would Iran do?
I think Iran is likely to rely on a three-pronged attack, mainly targeting Israeli defense installations. I think it was noted with a lot of interest and attention that the Israeli attack also against Iran mainly focused on the drone factory and the missile sites, and carefully avoided any civilian population and oil and nuclear facilities. So I'm sure Iranian attack would reciprocate this Israeli scare, and the most likely targets are likely to be the Israeli air bases from which those fighter squadrons had taken off to launch attack against Iran. However, it could be a combination of drones launched from Iraq or Syria, and also it is likely that Iran is going to rely more on the hypersonic cruise missiles rather than ballistic missiles for more accurate impact and targeting of the targets, and also penetrating the multi-layered air defense system of Israel, which now also includes the US-2 batteries of theater high-altitude air defense systems, which have been recently deployed. And it is also likely that Hezbollah and Houthis will coordinate some diversionary ballistic and rocket attack in order to saturate the Israeli air defense and allow the Iranian hypersonic cruise missiles to accurately penetrate and hit the desired targets.
Well, you have more information and access to data and reports. I only have a gut feeling. And my gut feeling is that despite all these scenarios and preparations, it would not be too prudent for Tehran to make any major move before November 4. They would very much want to see what the results are. And probably, logically speaking, because Iranians are very logical people, they might want to wait and see what the results are. They will retaliate at some point, and they will choose the quantum and the style and format of their retaliation. But my feeling is that they would wait till the results are out of November 5 elections. I may be wrong, but I think we have run out of time. So we will end our today's podcast over that note. See you next Friday.
Thank you for joining us.